he had really long hair, I remember, and they were both coming across, and I thought, my goodness, if they fall over with those backpacks, they're goners. I mean, the water was really running, so my dry socks, I had them on, and so I went back out and got wet again, and as I reached out to grab the lady's hand to kind of steady her, I noticed she had an X engraved on her forehead, and so did the gentleman back behind her, and I thought, does anybody remember what was going on around that time? Yeah. Charlie Manson. Yeah. And again, I was a 19-year-old kid. I knew this stuff was going on, but I was more important and more into playing in the river and driving back in there. I wasn't really following the news. I just knew that Charlie Manson was a bad guy and this stuff was going on. But as soon as I saw it, I thought, So we got him across, and the gentleman that was there, I don't think he was under the influence of anything, but he was no smarter than that pillar right there. I mean, he couldn't even hardly talk. I think he'd actually fried his brains from maybe drugs or whatever. And little short gal, very chatty, and so, can we ride with you guys? So they jump in, the girl sits next to me, and we put the guy in back, and all my buddies were back except for one other guy. We're heading back into the Sespe, and she kept talking, and so many years ago, folks, I don't remember everything she said, but she was out there. And I knew enough that I'm not the smartest guy around, but I knew that Charlie Manson was not good. So anyway, when we got in there a ways, we were close to the hot springs. I said, "This is when you're getting out, honey." And she, "Oh, no, we're going to party with you guys, and we're going to..." I said, no, you're not. But before that, she told me on the way, and I've got to leave part of the story out, big part. She said that she's Charles Manson's girlfriend, and no, she didn't. She said she was Charles Manson's attorney's girlfriend. If you remember, there was Ronald Hughes, the attorney, was lost back in there, and she was coming back in with her boyfriend to actually go ahead and find this guy. So anyway, we went ahead. We separated from him. There's really no big punchline in this story or anything, but Perry wanted me to convey it to you. It was probably about a month later. Well, I'll tell you what, on the way out, I had a motorcycle with me too in the back, and another guy was riding a motorcycle while we were there, and my motorcycle was sliding around, so I let somebody else drive my truck, and I was riding the motorcycle. And as we went out, my buddy went over a cliff, and he didn't get hurt. You guys may know him, Mike Payton. He used to live in Ojai for a long time. And we got him back up the bank with the help of a Jeep that came along and some older guys. These guys, like Rick said, this guy was probably 40, but he seemed a lot older at the time. And so he gets us up there, and he says, "Hey," he says, after we get the bike up, he says, "Do you know any, you seem like you know this area." And I said, "Well, I've been in the Sespe a lot of times. I'm a local kid and all." And he says, "Well, I've got a psychic, and we're going to be coming," well, that's what we're here now for. This lady's a psychic, and we're going to be coming back, and we're from New York, and how would you like to go ahead and be our outfitter, be our guide next time when we come? So he called me 2 or 3 times, and he wanted me to rent all this stuff, and I said, "Where's the money?" And he never sent me money. And the next thing I know, in March of that year, I believe, is when they found Mr. Hughes. And the story I heard at the time, I don't think this is true, but that 3 fishermen found him. And true to be fishermen, they supposedly went ahead and, "Yeah, he's dead, he's switched in the rocks, he's not going anywhere. The fish are biting. We'll report it later on." So I don't know if that's true or not. And I think that actually 2 fishermen found him, not 3. And but it's a
fish story.
Yeah, but it's a fish story, right? So anyway, that's really it. Okay, thank you.
I can add a little color to that. First, thanks, Drew, that was good. Ronald Hughes was the lawyer for Leslie Van Houten, no relation, right? Yeah. Who was one of Manson's followers, and there had been some kerfuffle because he wanted, I guess, Hughes had pushed to have her trial separated from the main family's trial, and that was kind of apparently what earned him the death mark, and he had left to go backpacking during a break, Thanksgiving of '70, I think. and didn't come back, but he wasn't known to be a very punctual guy, so the judge was just figuring, oh, he's late again. But then he really did not come back. And they found his body, like you said, wedged. It was, I think they said it was south of Alder Creek, or downstream from the Alder-Sespe confluence. They found his body in March of '71.
Has it ever been proven?
No. And it was two fishermen.
Two fishermen.
Yeah, they.
Fish story.
Sesame stories abound.
Maybe it was just one fisherman. Yeah. And it was really
Any
short.
other Charlie Manson stories from our panelists? Good.
Next time we should all just have Sharpies.
That's right. Yeah. But we do have some other Sesame stories. In fact, Craig, you want to do the little brush fire that?
Oh, and where the flames went higher?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, see what I did there? Yeah. As just about everybody here is probably aware, Johnny Cash lived for a time in Casita Springs. And he was a fisherman, but I'll try not to make this a fish story. He had I think it was a Chevy or a GMC camper van that he often drove the Sespe Road from the old lion camp down to the hot springs. And one of the most popular fishing places was Coltrell Flats, or some of the maps incorrectly have it, I think, is Cotriel, so I'm not sure which one it's supposed to be. But there was a cabin there, and this was at the height of Mr. Cash's pill popping problem. So he had all his fishing gear, and he had named his truck Jesse after the outlaw Jesse James. So he had driven Jesse down the old Sespe River Road, 10 or 12 miles to Coltrell Flat, parked on the side of the road, had walked out, and he was doing a bit of fishing when, and hadn't noticed that he had been dragging his muffler along like for miles down the road. By the time he parked there on the high grass in June of '65, it set the grass alight, and I don't know which ranger it was. I don't think it was Ranger Boggs. Oh, okay. So, but when the ranger got on scene and they got the start of the fire suppression efforts underway, they walked out to the creek and they found Johnny Cash just passed out with his fishing pole. And the official report said, Cash, Jr., resident, Casita Springs, drunk on dope. And so that's how they defined it, drunk on dope. And so the federal government, pursued, it was called the Adobe Fire. They burned 508 acres there near the Park Creek or Park Canyon area and went into the Condor Sanctuary. And there were some reports that they killed dozens of condors, but that was never substantiated. And in the legal proceedings, Johnny Cash, when told that he may or may not have killed a bunch of these endangered birds, his direct quote was, "I don't give a damn about your yellow buzzards," and pushed the cameraman or interviewer away and walked out. And that seems pretty consistent. I don't think that's a fish story. I think that's a Cash story.
Wow.
And he was fined $80,000, and he maintained he was the only. Sorry, he was fined $80,000, and he maintains he was the only private citizen successfully sued by the Los Padres or by the Forest Service up until that time. Yeah.
Where to from there, boy? More fun in the Sespe. Actually, it was not a good time.
No.
1969.
No.
Craig, you want to MC that story?
Yeah,
We can kind of see the other guys.
Yeah, I can give the basic rundown. As anyone who grew up in the Sespe backcountry, or as a Boy Scout who was taken into the Sespe backcountry, was made aware, you have two cautionary tales. Well, more than two, but the two main ones are, don't be a knucklehead and try to climb Rose Valley Falls above the main trail. Because we all know somebody or a friend of somebody who got injured or paralyzed or killed doing that. Friends of mine in junior high, it was like every 4 years it was happening, right? The other tale was, sure, the Sespe is usually just a cobblestone path, but especially the moms who, like my mom had moved to Ventura in December of 1968, so the first month she lived in Ventura County, the big storm in January of '69 came through. So raising me and my brothers, it was always, if you go to Sespe, don't be an idiot. If it rains, you just stay where you are. I mean, it was always a very serious, like, she seems really stressed, and you're like, okay, Mom, I got it, you know? And only when you're a little older do they tell you the scary part of the story and the kind of why. And that was in mid-January of 1969. There was, and some of the stories say they were scouts. My understanding is there was a youth or church group that they actually wanted Boy Scouts. Not that I'm being offensive, I'm just saying. A group of 6 boys and their leader from Canoga Park had gone backpacking. They had gone down all the way to Cultural Flat, and we have a photo of the cabin. I can show you that in a bit. And these, you know, once in a lifetime, one would think, rains came down and they were stuck. The water was super high and they weren't going anywhere. And the leader said, look, we're in a cabin. We've got a bunch of, they had like some sort of like ding-dongs or Twinkies or hostesses. So there's no, you know, 10, 11, 13-year-old boy who wants to go out in the rain when you can stay in a dry cabin and eat a bunch of junk food that you're not allowed to have at home, right? So they hunkered down in the cabin and they were fine, as we understand. The parents, though, call, they reach out to the Forest Service, who in turn reaches out to the CB base that used to be there at the opening of Rose Valley, and they call and they say, hey, these kids are behind schedule, could you go check on them? So Chief Sears, who was a veteran of Vietnam, recently returned, was working up there with the construction battalion. He took this big like D9 dozer, or some sort of, you know, pretty impressive dozer, along with a ranger and a deputy from the Ventura County Sheriff, Chester Larson. They'll get on the dozer, they head out, they see the abandoned, or the trucks that had gotten mired down at one point, and they drive on, crossing the creek 4 or 5 times, and they get to Cultural Flat, and they find everybody in there playing cards and eating junk food, and they say, all right, boys, get on the dozer, we're leaving. And there had been a gentleman from either Ojai Valley School or Thatcher, where did Mr. Eckersley work? Eckersley.
Live Oak School.
Was it Live Oak? Thank you, okay. And he had come up from, I guess, the Horn Canyon Trail and come down. And he had run into the boys there as well, and he was hunkered down. So they all, 10 of them, 11 of them, get on the dozer and they start driving out. When they get to Bear Creek, which is the 3rd to last crossing, about 4 miles from the old lion camp, they go into the water hits the blade of the dozer, goes over, hits the engine compartment, kills the motor. They can't restart.